Hey guys, we're going to do another video. This time we're working on something in class called expression mats. And if you're not in our class, this might look a little funky to you, but basically what we've been doing is using algebra tiles, which are these little plastic tiles that come in different colors, shapes, and sizes, to represent things like x and y in units. And we've been working on taking these tiles and creating expressions, and now we're working on comparing those expressions to figure out which is greater. And we're trying to kind of get away from the hands-on tool. They're nice to use, but eventually you can't use algebra tiles all the time. So we're slowly kind of moving away from the tiles and starting to learn how to organize our work on paper. So now I'm drawing pictures of the tiles, and we're going to go through and determine which is greater, the left side or the right side. And we're going to do that in a very organized fashion. We're going to try and make a table. So we're going to have left, right, and we're going to include what's called an explanation. And we want to make our work readable to others so that people can kind of follow our thought process. Now if you're not in our class and you don't know what an algebra tile is and you're totally lost, you may need to back up a few videos and kind of go watch about that first. So here's what we do. We make this table. We're going to organize our work. We're going to have our left, right, and our explanation. And when we start our work, we always start with what is called our original expression. What's the original expression, the original thing that we are beginning with? So I'm going to write that down. So if you're looking at the picture here, our original expression on the left are the tiles that we've laid out. I see one positive tile. I'm going to write that down, 1. I see minus 2 tiles, 2 negative tiles, and then I have whatever's in the subtraction box. So we write subtract parentheses, and then we represent what's down here inside those parentheses. So I see a negative x tile plus 1 little unit. And I'm going to write that down. That's my original expression on the left side. On the right side, I see that up top I have an x and a minus 1. And then down below in the subtraction box, I write minus parenthesis. In the subtraction box, I see 3 negative tiles, so negative 3. And that's my original right side. So my problem is all nicely set up. I've got my picture, I've got my original expression, I've got my table. Now I just got to go through my steps of how to solve. And the steps are kind of the same. We can do 3 legal moves. We can flip, we can zero, and we can balance. And I usually do them in that order. So flip means we can move tiles. And we're going to write that down, flip. I like to flip all my tiles up. If I move them up, they're easier for me to work with. So I'm going to flip this little unit up. And I'm going to flip this X tile up. And the reason it's called a flip is because when you take one of these little tiles and you're actually using it, it actually flips over to the other side. You're really literally flipping a tile. Now on paper, it's just going to change colors. That negative tile is going to turn into a dark positive tile. That little unit becomes an empty white negative tile. And I'm going to do the same thing over here with these 3 tiles. I'm going to flip those tiles up and make them dark positive units. Now that I've done that, I need to write out what I have. So now I don't have these tiles down on the bottom. They're flipped up. Now I have 1, 2, 3 negatives, negative 3 unit tiles, plus 1 little tile, plus this X tile. That's my expression now. And on the right, I no longer have what's down below down here. I don't have that anymore. I have X, a minus 1, and 3 units. So I'm going to write X, a minus 1, plus 3 units. That's my flip move. The next thing I can do is I can zero pair this problem. I can look for 0 pairs and remove them. I can remove my 0 pairs. So a 0 pair is whenever you have like a positive and negative together that you can take off the mat. Because here's an example. A positive and a negative right here are going to cancel out and make 0. So we're just going to take those off the mat, literally pull them off the mat. On the right side, I see like these 2 could be a 0 pair. I'm going to take those off the mat too. I don't really see anything else that'll work. So I have now left on the mat an X and 2 negative tiles. So I have X minus 2 left over. On the right side of the mat, I still have an x, and I have positive 2 tiles, so x plus 2 on that side. The next legal move that I can do is called a balance. And a balance is where if you have something that matches on the left and the right mat, you can take them both off at the same time. Think of balancing, you think of weights and you're trying to balance the left and the right side. Same idea. I see that I have an x and an x. I'm going to take those two x's and balance them off the mats. So I'm going to take this x off and this x off. And if I do that, the only thing left on the mat are 2 negative tiles. So -2. And the only thing left on the right mat are 2 positive tiles. So +2. And at this point, I've flipped, I've zeroed, I've balanced, I'm ready for an answer. Now the question, in case you've forgotten, is which is greater? So which is greater, a -2 or a +2? Well, we know +2, so I'm going to write it like this. -2 is less than a +2, and I'll circle that as my answer. Look how nicely this work is organized. I think the most important thing I can kind of stress to you right now if you're watching this video is that I'm really trying to get on you about organizing your work. Doing the steps correctly is important, but showing it and writing it out each step is probably just as important right now for where we are in class. So flip, zero, balance. Those are the 3 legal moves that we are working on. And I'm going to do that on all of these problems if possible. So that's example 1. Let's try another one. Let's keep practicing this. Here's example 2. Feel free to pause the video so you can copy down the pictures. I don't want to go too fast. So we have our left and our right, and we're going to organize this into a table. So left, right, and explanation. Left, right, explanation. Okay. We want to figure out which is greater, the left or the right, and we're going to do that by showing all of our steps. We're always going to start off with the original. What do we originally have on the mat? What is the original expression? So on the left mat, I see 2 x's, so I'm going to write that down. I see 2 units, so +2. And then I see the subtraction box, minus parentheses. And down in the subtraction box, I see an x. That's my original expression. On the right, I see -2. I see 2 negatives. And then I see a lot of stuff in the subtraction box, so I'm going to write minus parentheses. And down below, I see a -x and 1, 2, 3, -3 units. So a -x and a -3. Okay, that's my original right. It's all written out. Now let's go through the legal moves. We're going to flip, then we're going to zero, and then we're going to balance. Now you don't have to do it in that order. Some people want to do their 0 pairs first, and then flip, and then balance, and that's okay. I just kind of like to do it the same way every time to be kind of consistent. That way if you're trying to kind of mimic my steps and trying to do it the same way, it's easy for us to compare to each other. So I like to flip. It's my preferred way. I'm going to flip my tiles up first. I'm going to flip this x up, make it turn into a negative white x. I'm going to flip these 3 units up so they all become dark shaded positive unit tiles. I'm also going to flip this x up so it becomes dark and shaded. And then I think I've flipped everything. I'm going to write out what I have. I no longer have the subtraction box anymore. So now I see I still have those 2 x's. And I still have these 2 units. But now I have a minus x, a negative x. I'm going to write that down. On the right, I still have the -2 units. But now I have a positive x and a +3 units. So plus x plus 3. Okay, there's my flip move. Now let's go down to the next one. Let's zero out. So 0 pairs, I see an x and a -x that could zero out. Let's get those off the mat. I see on the right side a pair of units I could take. And I see another pair of units. I see these ones right here that I could take off the map. Alright, so what's left over? Well, we still have an x and 2 units on the left, so x plus 2. We still have an x and a 1 unit, x plus 1, on the right. And I'm ready for my next step. Let's balance. Whatever matches up on the left and right, we can take off. In this case, there's an x and an x. So let's take those off. Balance off an x, balance off an x. And actually, I see more that I can do. There's this one little unit, but I could take 1 unit off of both sides. And if I do that, notice what happens on the right side. Look, there's nothing left. If you look real closely, everything's been taken off the map. We have 0 things left on the right. On the left, there's barely anything. There's just that one little unit. So that one little unit is left over. So I'm ready for an answer. I'm ready to answer my question. Which is greater? Well, which is greater between these two? Well, which is greater, 1 or 0? 1. So 1 is greater than 0. And that's my answer. Again, it's all about organizing work. It's cool that you're maybe able to find the right answer and figure out that the left is greater. But it's just as cool if you're able to show each step in a really nice, organized fashion. It's only going to help you more as we get into more of the algebra concepts. So I have one more for you here, example 3 for the video. And this time, I recommend you pause it and see if you can do this all on your own. Maybe you don't need my help. That would be really cool to see you try it and see if you get it right. So pause the video and give it a try, and then I'll go through the answer. Okay, so we always start with the original, writing out what we have. And I see on my original that I have an x and a negative x. So x minus x plus 3 little units. And then down in the subtraction box, so subtract parentheses, I see a negative x. So I'm going to write that down as my original left side. On the right side, I have an x plus 2. And then down in the subtraction box, minus parentheses, I see 1 and negative 2. So 1 minus 2. Write it like that. So I go through my steps. I'm going to flip. I'm going to 0. And I'm going to balance. If I can. Sometimes you can't do some of these steps. Maybe there's no 0 pairs. Let's see. So let's flip this x up. Make it a dark shaded x. And that's it. And then let's flip all these units up. The 2 empty negatives become 2 solid positives. And that dark one becomes an empty white one. Okay, so then we write out, with these being gone, we now have 2 x's and a negative x. And we have 3 units plus 3. So that's the left. On the right, we now have an x tile. Plus we have 4 units. And then we have that minus 1 tile, so minus 1. Alright, now let's 0. So 0 pairs, looking at just the top now, I see that I have a pair of x's I could easily take off the map. I see on the right side I could take off some units. I think that's it though. I don't see anything else. So there's still an x and there's still 3, so there's still x plus 3. And there's still an x and there's still 3 on that side as well, so x plus 3. And I'm on to my last step. Let's balance this thing. Now for balancing on this one, if you didn't already do this, you can see everything matches up. Here's an x, here's an x. Let's balance it off. Here's 3 unit tiles. Well, here's 3 unit tiles. Let's take the 3 unit tiles off. If everything balances, we are literally wiping the mats clean, and there's nothing on the left and nothing on the right, so we have 0 and 0. So to answer our question, which is greater, the left or the right? This is one of those odd cases where you say, well, they're actually equal to each other. 0 equals 0. Neither one of them is greater. They're both equal to each other. Alright, so I hope that helps. This is just a little video to kind of focus on how do we do these which is greater problems with the mats and the tiles. How do we organize our work? pretty soon we're not going to be using tiles anymore in class. We'll be all done with tiles and it'll be just you doing your work without them. So you really want to get the visual down so that it makes this part easier when we get into it. Okay, hope that helps. Thanks.